So the Albertsons Foundation just released a report. Why did you want to get into this? What was the impetus for creating this report?
Yeah, well, I think first of all the timing was right. Newly elected governor, many new elected officials, new start with an incumbent state superintendent, and from a timing standpoint, we just felt it would be an opportune time to tell a real, I would say, unbiased, accurate reflection of where we are with our current educational attainment, what the impact that's having on future opportunities, well, actually opportunities today and future opportunities for the kids within that system. So I think timing was right, and then the report really calls out some pretty significant data points that might be important to a new governor and some new elected officials and some professional educators that are genuinely trying to make a difference. So I think fundamentally that was the rationale about doing it now.
Yeah, and the report's called Idaho at Risk.
Yes.
I mean, that makes it feel like there's a crisis in education right now. Is Idaho at risk, and is there a crisis?
Yeah, I would say, well, if you looked at key indicators today, so if you want a simple answer, my simple answer would be yes. But I think I need to quantify that for you so you can really get to what leads me to, I would say, or us in relationship to the report, it leads us to a greater level of concern. And that is, in most educational rankings or indicators, we lag. We lag our neighboring states, we lag states across the country. If you look at our average weekly wage in the last couple of years, we're either last or second to last. So Idaho's got the lowest weekly wage in America, and our educational attainment levels within our system are underperforming, to say the least. So then you dig a little bit deeper and you look at what an antiquated system, how that's going to impact a child today and moving forward in relationship to the pace of innovation in our society. You're going to have a higher skilled, more knowledgeable workforce with doors opening up and those with a lower skill set being left further behind. And so if we can't adjust or we can't figure out a way to improve opportunities for kids in Idaho academically and educationally that drive educational attainment, our kids will be left behind at a much faster pace than they would, or even if they weren't, if they were allowed the opportunity to excel and create, I would say, current and future opportunities that were relevant with where the workforce was going today. I think fundamentally the other thing that I should probably touch on is we're going to have to agree what the purpose of an education is. Is it to foundationally have an educated citizenry? I would say minimally yes, but along with that, or in parallel with that, we need to be able to provide knowledge and skills and dispositional qualities that lead to livable wage jobs and earnings, potential earnings for our candidates. The report really shows the wage earning difference between high school graduates and college graduates. And that could be 2-year post-secondary training to a 4-year or some sort of graduate degree. But that gap is widening, and it's widening quickly. So when you say, are we at risk, I would say yes.
Can someone be educated and not make a high wage, though? I mean, is the K through 12 education system about creating a workforce, or is it about creating an informed citizen?
Yeah, so I think a knowledgeable citizenry and a well-educated citizenry is a much better citizenry that you would like to be part of. Mm-hmm. It's typically healthier, in fact, physically healthier, emotionally it's healthier, lower incarceration rates, lower crime rates, usually lead to higher paying jobs, and it's also a talent pipeline that generates business and industry wanting to relocate to places like Idaho because that talent pipeline is performing at a high level. So I don't see any incentive not to have a highly educated citizenry that also leads to opportunities to learn, thrive, and prosper in our state. And that's really the foundation of the report.
Yeah, when I was looking through some of the numbers in there, you were saying that we were lagging states around us, but it did seem like we were kind of hitting middle of the pack numbers in a lot of situations. Yeah. When you look at the total, I mean, is middle of the pack okay?
Well, I guess when you earlier when we talked about why now, mm-hmm. you know, I haven't heard a statewide leader, I'm not sure in a long time, make a commitment, a public commitment to a bold leadership statement that says, we want Idaho's educational system to be best in the country. I'm not sure why, other than there are things that go along with that, or implications and costs that go along with that, or perceived implications and cost. But I think it's time that we decide to do better. And so the data that you're referring to in the book, where it looks like we're in the middle of the pack, we're actually in the upper, it depends on how you look at it, and we report on it. It's basic on the NAEP. And so basic is not proficient. That's meeting part of the benchmarks required to meet proficiency. So in my mind, proficiency is what you know and are able to do aligned with standards. Basic on the National Assessment of Educational Progress is not meeting proficiency. So we do fine in basic, but when you actually get up into the proficiency numbers, we drop down substantially. Minimally, is that what we're shooting for, basic? Or are we shooting for proficiency and mastery in content areas? And then if you look at our remediation of our post-secondary students that are actually going on, it's concerning. I think people should pay attention to that. Again, the intent of the report is not to be negative. The idea, it was written in a way where it gave us a foundational starting point to where a plan could be developed to improve, and then we could create key performance indicators and benchmarks in that plan to see if we're actually making progress that we're hopeful for. So it doesn't seem that complicated, and the report points it out, but I think it's a really good starting point to begin having these conversations.
And if we do get that bold leadership, if let's say Governor Little gets up there and says, I want to not only be #1 in the country, but I want to be #1 in the world.
Yeah.
Well, what are the solutions that you're looking at? How do we get there?
Well, I think you rely on the professional educators. I mean, that's why they're called professional educators. They're responsible for the solutions to provide an incredible education for Idaho's kids. What leadership and accountability can bring to the table is a new bar, a new expectation, whether it's a governor or a legislature or it's a local school district superintendent or a building principal or just a community that's committed to doing something meaningful. Expectations are laid out by leadership. Accountability tied to that leadership is also part of the plan. The one thing that we're missing in education is accountability. We put accountability frameworks around a lot of things like finance, transportation, number of children, food service, a variety of costs. But there is no accountability to a school or a school district or a community around what kids should know and be able to do. And then what happens if those kids don't measure up to those expected benchmarks? What happens? The answer is nothing.
Well, what should the accountability be? I mean, are we going to fire teachers or fire superintendents or withhold money? Like, what does that accountability look like?
Well, I think that should be left up to the local education agency. So we have 115 of them in Idaho, 115 school districts, also known as the local education agency. That's the group that should really be designing their accountability framework and what they think is most important. I think this SEA, the State Board of Education, should be able to take a look at those 115 plans and say, that's a good plan, or that plan needs some help. Now, how the local community goes about working towards meeting those expectations and those goals and the indicators in the plan, I think would be up to them, and it should be up to them. And then basically, you could have 115 different ways of helping kids reach a higher level of educational attainment as long as they get there. And then the reality comes down to classroom teachers pretty much do what they're asked to do and expected to do. So are building principals. So if you think about it, if you want to just look at hierarchy, the responsibility falls on the shoulders of the superintendent and the local school board. And that's where the expectation should come from, and that's where the accountability should come from as well. And so you've got unbelievable leaders in this state doing a really good job in a lot of Idaho schools, and then we fall short in a lot of school districts and a lot of communities. I don't know why we're so afraid to look at that and ask those hard questions. It's the most important job in this state and in this country is the education of our children, and sometimes I wonder if we take that seriously.
A lot of the folks I talked to in the last day since the report was released said this looked a lot like Don't Fail Idaho.
Yeah.
How is this different than that program?
So Don't Fail Idaho, we set out really with one goal, and that goal was to elevate education to the top priority in our state. And I think we can check that box 4 or 5 times over. So that wasn't an attempt to really, I would say, help change people or tweak people's attitudes to have a greater understanding of why education is so important and why it's equally, if not more important than the economy or healthcare or other things that fall on priorities of a state. And so Don't Fail Idaho was really put together on data and facts. It was humanized, it was pushed out through mass media, really designed to move education to the top and then change people's attitudes. This one is really about a new day and a new time and an opportunity to look and see where we are. And if we're really committed to getting better, then let's all agree on what the data says. It's often not perfect, but fundamentally, we can say, here's where we are, here's where we'd like to be, here is the plan to get us there, and here are those accountable to help getting us there, and then let's hold ourselves accountable to the performance of that plan.
Well, I look forward to see what happens next after this data gets
Yeah.
out there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for your time.